Unbroken, healing through storytelling.
Hello and welcome to Unbroken, the podcast with me, Madeleine Black, speaking to people with inspiring stories, people that have overcome adversity, but they have not just bounced back in life, they have bounced forward, and now they are using their lived experiences to make a difference for other people. And today, my guest is Kimberly Weeks. Kimberly is a believer in Christ, a trauma survivor, speaker, and advanced certified trauma recovery coach under the supervision of the International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaching. She is called to serve people with childhood trauma, codependency, and narcissistic and psychological abuse. She is an entrepreneur and CEO of Kimberly Weeks Coaching LLC and the founder of the Kimberly Weeks Freedom Academy. Can't say that word, that exists to disrupt the patterns, principles, and practices of relational abuse. She supports survivors with one-to-one coaching and coaching communities. Kimberly was brought to coaching after a 13-year abusive marriage and a health diagnosis that left her searching for answers on the impact of long-term abuse on the body. She began her own recovery and loved the trauma-informed process so much that she wanted to help others. As both a childhood and narcissistic abuse survivor, Kimberly is passionate about supporting recovery and discovery of identity and purpose for her clients. She spent 15 years in the corporate world in sales and marketing with Fortune 100 companies and is a graduate of the University of North Carolina with a degree in journalism and mass communications. She integrates both her business and lived experience as well as her faith in God into her coaching to support both the natural and spiritual caption needs of her clients. She resides in the Greater Atlanta, GA area in the United States with her 4 sons. She loves dancing, nature, laughter, and covenant partnerships and friendships. Welcome, Kimberly. How lovely to have you on the show. Sorry, I got a bit tongue-tied through.
Oh, it's okay. I was like, man, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, you've done a lot and experienced a lot.
I have. And it's been a wild ride, an adventure. I like to look at it as an adventure because
that's a great way to look at it, isn't it?
It is. It's lots of ups and downs. This life is full of opportunities to learn and to grow. And so, yeah, this is my life adventure for sure.
So before we get into your story, I always ask everyone the same question, the very first question, which is, what does the word unbroken mean to you?
The word unbroken. I love that word, by the way. It is basically, in my view, when I hear the word unbroken, I hear a person who holds on to their center, who does not lose touch with who they really are.
Yes.
And you know, you've had lots of guests on your show with lots of different experiences. And at the core of each of us, when we go through, you know, trials, when we go through difficult times, it really shows you what's on the inside of you. It shows you some good things. It shows you some challenging things. It shows you some traumatic things. But if you can hold on to who you really are, that is what I would call a person who's unbroken.
I love that. So despite whatever happens to you, just remembering who you are at your core.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So I knew that you were in an abusive relationship, but I didn't know about the abuse from when you were younger. Can you start there? What happened with that?
Sure. And, you know, it's an interesting story because most people do not associate watching abuse or seeing abuse as abuse. We call it secondary abuse, secondary trauma.
Well, you know, I worked with a women's aid group for 14 years in the UK, and we do in the UK, we say if you witness abuse, then that is child abuse as well, because you're put into a state of fear constantly. And your nervous system is developing. One of the things I learned coaching and trauma recovery coaching is how that first 5 years of life and your developmental years for your nervous system and your brain, how that impacts long-term health outcomes. And so I grew up in a household
that was, very much like the generations behind me. I'm actually in a summit the 2 weeks from now, called the No More Trauma Summit. And it's about people's lived experiences in the melanated or Black community. And we have grown up in environments where a certain type of discipline, a certain type of relational interaction between parents is very common. And my childhood was one where I just witnessed psychological abuse. I witnessed verbal, emotional, all of those different things. And as a young daughter growing up, it shaped how I saw relationships, like what I was to expect from, having a relationship with a man for me. So yeah, that's kind of the framework. And what it did was it put you in this position where you are masked.
Mm-hmm.
Have private life, and I'm sure you've heard this from other guests. You have a public life. You have something that's happening at home, and you have something that's happening or what you're to present to the world in public. And so that's really where, my abuse history started, my trauma history started, was watching that growing up.
You had all that inside you, and then you met your ex-husband. How old were you when you met?
22. I was 22 years old. Yeah, actually, I just turned 23, actually, 23 years old. So a baby, still a baby, right?
Well, I think my 27-year-old's still a baby, so definitely still a baby.
Right.
And was he abusive from straight away? How did it happen?
Oh, of course not. My abuse was technically what we would call narcissistic or psychological abuse, which is basically abuse by mind control, abuse by brainwashing, and it is a gateway form of abuse to all other kinds of abuse: financial, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, sexual. It's a gateway. It starts with that. So I met what I thought was Prince Charming. I met what I thought was the answer to the little girl inside of me wanting a family that was going to have, health and connection and, memories and all of that. That's what I thought I was signing up for, so to speak. And, like the first phase of narcissistic abuse or psychological abuse is what's called idealization. So I was idolized. I was put on a pedestal. I was given lots of attention, adoration, gifts, trips, all of that stuff.
It made you feel really special.
Really special, really like you're the one for me. And that's how it starts. And so you're completely, without the experience, unaware that it's actually a form of, I use the word casing. It's actually that person studying you, mirroring back what you want, what you desire, even who you are, your likes, your interests, and, projecting that into the relationship. So then you believe you're signing up for, or you're agreeing to a relationship with a person who's not even real. They've put on a complete show. It's a mask, and it's like a character that they've taken on, and they can take that character off and put on a different character for a different person. So that's how it started for me. People would go, oh my gosh, why would you stay? People say, with an abusive person, but it never starts out looking like abuse.
I always think of it as like a drip, drip, drip effect, isn't it? It kind of drips.
It is.
You. Yep. And then you get caught by the impact of abuse, and then it's too hard to leave because you're affected by the impact of abuse and what it does to your beliefs and your confidence and all the thoughts that you're fed, that you'll never be good enough, you'll never be able to look after the kids, and who else would want you, all of the stuff. But you tell us how it was for you.
Yeah, and I used to think that, and all of what you just shared is absolutely true, but there's actually a chemical component to this. Yeah. When you go through the abuse cycle with a person, you actually become chemically bonded to that abuse cycle, the release of stress, the release of cortisol, adrenaline, all of that. And it gets married or coupled, the word is coupled. That abuse then gets coupled with this person who is a love interest of yours, or someone that you are a family with now that you've been married to the person. And so it's called a trauma bond.
Yes.
You actually bond through that interaction.
Yeah.
And the more time that's spent in that environment, the deeper the bond becomes. And so That's why so many women and men, and I'll say and men because I coach men also, have a very difficult time because they don't understand their system. Their nervous system is chemically bonded to the person. And when they leave the relationship or they are discarded from the relationship, they actually go through withdrawal.
Yeah, it's detox, isn't it?
It's a detox.
Detox that attachment that you formed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And it's literally, you will have physical symptoms of withdrawal, shakes, sweats, like compelling to go be in that person's presence. So your body releases the same chemical and cortisol and stress hormone. So for me, being in the relationship was like someone ripping your identity apart. That's the way that I can describe it. And it was a very slow drip. It was a situation where I started out being a very confident person, or what I could be in terms of confidence at 23 years old. And then all of a sudden, I didn't know who I was anymore. I was out of touch with my capacity, my capabilities, my abilities, my gifts. And I was brainwashed into being or having that abuser be the sole center of my world. That person's approval, validation, acceptance, love, attention. And it just threw me completely off. What I thought was completely off course for my life. Yeah.
And when did you become aware of this? Because you were married for 13 years and you had 4 boys together.
Right.
When did it become obvious that something wasn't what you thought it was?
So when I would say in the first year and a half of the 13 years, I could tell that we had some problems. Again, I wasn't linking what I grew up watching in my childhood with what I was experiencing because the slow drip had just started. But I started to realize that this was significant when certain other types of violence or abuse started to begin. There were instances of sexual violence. There were instances of discard, like, you're married to a person and the person withholds everything from you. They withhold what their intentions are for the house that you're buying, what their intentions are for, buying vehicles. I mean, like big decisions that are normal for a couple to make together. You're completely unaware of any of it. Like you're not even a part of their life, but they're coming home every day.
So you're left out of the picture completely.
And yet the person's coming home every day and you're raising children and you're in a family, you're taking pictures and you're going to holiday gatherings, and it just was such a contrast from what was put out in public to what was at home that I started searching for answers. I started going to counselors and therapists. I talked to pastors. I talked to friends. My mind was being rewired. And I remember midway through, I had what I call a blackout episode. And I was at the time I was working for a big company and I was traveling the East Coast every week for business. And I was in front of a hospital system doing a presentation with a group of vendors. And I had a blackout. I was there, but I didn't know why I was there. I was speaking one minute and I could not remember who I was or why I was there in the moment. And that's when things really started to change in terms of me understanding how my body was being impacted by this environment.
Because you went on to develop some serious health issues, didn't you?
I did. And they were, again, you said slow drip. There was a slow drip of understanding those symptoms because, 1 minute was I forgot to pick the kids up. The next minute it was I would be in a room and volume for the television would be a normal volume, but it sounded like I was in a stadium.
Yes.
1 minute I would be having a conversation and talking to someone and they'd be speaking and my brain couldn't comprehend what they were saying. I mean, just little things.
It sounds like you were overloaded, really, with all the
what they call it is your nervous system is overloaded. Yeah. Absolutely.
All the power and control that he's imposing on you and the gaslighting and the projection. You just overloaded your system. What did you go on to develop? Can you tell people?
Right. And interestingly, the symptoms did not climax. They didn't come to a place where it was like really bad until 3 months after we signed our divorce papers.
Okay.
And I woke up one morning and I went to go to the bathroom and I fell over because I couldn't feel my right leg. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't, it was like a limb, a dead limb. I was dragging it across the floor and I was like, oh my God.
That must have been so scary for you.
It was out of body. It was like I was watching a scene. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
It absolutely does.
It was very scary.
Like it was happening to someone else.
It was like it was happening to someone else. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I eventually was interesting. We're about to hit Christmas time. So 3 years ago, I was literally in the hospital on Christmas. 5 days. They don't keep you in the hospital anymore. So I was in the hospital for 5 days. And I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
And I remember you told me that when I first met you, and for people that aren't watching this on YouTube that are listening, Kimberly is the vision of health. It's not what you expect somebody that would have a MS diagnosis. I was shocked when you told me that. But you associate the body-mind connection with your health.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When you overload, when the system is overloaded, when your nervous system is constantly releasing stress, our bodies were not made to live in a state of fight or flight. There are brain changes that occur, and psychologists, but your amygdala got larger. There are parts of my brain called the hippocampus that shrunk, that have to do with being able to integrate memories, to be able to recall memories, all of those different things. My brain changed. The abuse actually impacted how I was able to function every day. And when I looked at my MRI, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm now seeing holes in my brainstem, on my left lobe, in my spine. And so absolutely, it's one of those things where if you experience that, and some people, I have, many clients, it's cancer.
Yeah.
I have clients that's fibromyalgia. I have clients that is rheumatoid arthritis. When your system's overloaded, it will manifest over time in some kind of expression in your physical body. We are a 3-part people. We're, spirit, soul, and body, and we're all going to have impacts as it relates to the different parts. We're not little compartments.
Part people. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how have you got to this place of health? How did you heal?
Oh gosh, and I am still healing. I'll say that first of all. I believe that healing is a lifestyle. I believe it is a continuous, ongoing process. But when I realized that my life was in danger from this situation, and there were several instances through the marriage where I realized that this person did not see me as human, and that my life was in danger. When I realized that, I went
You mean that both in the physical sense and in the emotional sense?
I mean, in the physical sense, in the emotional sense, in the, I went through a period during the marriage where I was wanting to commit suicide.
Yeah.
I had gotten to the place where I just could not handle life anymore. I couldn't handle the oppressive environment. I couldn't handle the person being in my brain.
And to get to that place, it's just really, because I've been in that place. So it's not about wanting to kill yourself. It's about wanting to make the pain end, really, isn't it?
That's right. I just couldn't. And at the time, I had my youngest baby, and he's 9 now, but he was a baby.
The one we saw just run up and down.
Yes, I know. I said, oh, I know.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's my youngest baby. And I remember going, I can't, because a part of the process was I had all of the responsibility for raising kids, all the diapers, all the changes, all the feedings, and taking the kids to every practice, to everything, to dealing with all of the stuff that had to do with their school and everything.
But you were a single mom anyway within a marriage.
I was a single mom in a marriage.
Yep. Yeah.
And the picture that was being given out is that this other person was the perfect.
I knew you were going to say that word, perfect.
And I would have people say it, and it almost feels like, you're in an alternate universe. It really does.
And that's because saying, that saying, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
How there isn't a more perfect saying for that, really, isn't there?
And if you've tried, and I tried talking to people, I tried telling people what was happening, and I got the same response every time. That guy, nah, come on, something, you must be, taking the things too serious. No, you probably just need to go get some help. I was accused of being, having all kinds of mental health disorders, or bipolar, or schizophrenic, all of those things. I was painted as this crazy person.
Isn't it awful how we'd rather shame the victim than actually say, actually, it's the abuser? And that happens time and time again with rape survivors, with abuse survivors, domestic abuse. We look to shame the woman rather than say, actually, he is the one at fault.
Yes. And it makes you go, why is it so much easier for someone to believe that the person who is experiencing behavior that, is a help sign, a white flag, somebody's gonna come help me? Why is it so hard for us to believe that there is a reason for that?
Yes.
That it's not just that they're, trying to get attention or making things up. So you asked the question, how did I heal? I had to get so committed to doing whatever it took. And I say this in, my coaching with my clients, whatever it takes. I cut out any person, any relationship, certain activities where my schedule was like packed with all these different things. I started going, no, I'm not going to do that. Nope, I'm not going to do that. Nope. I just have to plan a life that includes me in it.
Yes.
That includes my care in it, that includes me as a priority in it, because the abuser will brainwash you to think that for you to be good, a good mother, a good wife, a good partner, you have to sacrifice everything about yourself in order to meet the needs of other people. But I say this in my academy all the time, in order for you to show up well for other people, to love them well, it starts with loving yourself well.
Yes. And self-care isn't selfish, is it? Because if you don't look after yourself, you're a mum of 4 boys. Who's going to look after them if you can't look after you?
When I was in the hospital, I realized that. Like, I literally, my parents had to come to take care of them because I'm in the hospital. I couldn't do anything for them. I couldn't do anything for myself. They were very scared. I mean, they had already been through a pretty traumatic year with the divorce process and the separation, all of those different things. But yeah, I mean, this walk, this journey out of abuse. And you asked a question a minute ago about when did you think that you were in physical danger? You are in physical danger when the impact of someone's mind control shows up in your body.
Yes.
Affects your functionality, causes impairment, creates what I was diagnosed with, complex PTSD. You are in physical danger in that environment when it creates an environment where you can't do what you need to do every day to live.
Totally unhealthy for so many reasons. And were your boys aware of what was going on, or were you able as a mama to protect them?
So my oldest turned 22 on Monday. So he was actually in his senior year of high school. So what he was able to understand and what my next child was able to understand were very different than my 5-year-old at the time, very different than my 9-year-old at the time. But yes, they were able to see, because they were being not only shown it as a model, but he was actually teaching them to disregard me, to disrespect me, and to see me as a stupid person. He was saying those types of things to them. You don't have to listen to her. You don't have to do what she tells you to do. They saw all of that. They experienced all of that.
And then what kind of relationship would they go on to have if that's how they saw a woman? Or if that's how they
saw a woman. And I think that's one of the things that made me go, I got to get out of here.
Yes.
Because, and for many survivors, you are brainwashed to not or no longer care about yourself. But when someone comes for your kids, there is something that will stand up on the inside of you to say, you know what, that's it. Not that it's one thing for you to do X, Y, or Z to me. I hate that it's like that, but that's how they program you.
It's the lion
when you come,
the mother.
That's the mama bear. If you come and you're going to do something, and then I can like almost envision seeing my adult son do that to someone else. Like that ignited me. I've got to get out of this. I have to, because I don't want this repeated.
And that was my experience when I worked at Women's Aid. We call it in the UK for 14 years. I was holding the baby in my arms and he hit me, and he could have hit the baby, and you think, well, he's hit you all these years. But when it comes down to your children, that lioness, that mama bear just takes over, and you think, I can't do this anymore. I want a better future for them. So it's kind of sad because you're already impacted by the abuse, but it's good that you finally wake up to what's going on. But you can be very vulnerable when you leave the situation.
Yes.
How was it for you? Because I think it's actually one of the most vulnerable times when you make the decision to leave.
When you make the decision to leave, and that person who is a narcissistic abuser loses what control they have had over your mind and your body, it is extremely dangerous. It's the same for physical abuse. It's the same for sexual abuse. But because it is them brainwashing and controlling your decision making and how you see yourself as having the ability and authority to make decisions, it is very, very volatile. I went through in my divorce, it was hell. When I say to you, I mean it, it was a hellacious time. It's like a pirate who's jumped on a ship and they're getting the last bit of treasure.
Yeah, because they've got nothing to lose at that point, have they? So they
have nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So typically you'll see when people go through that process, lots of financial abuse. They want to leave you broke. They want to leave you destitute.
And he did, didn't he? He left you broke.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. They want to leave whatever environment that you're in. If they were not awarded certain things, if they didn't get the house, if they didn't get the car, they want to leave it as destitute and broken as possible. It's interesting. This is called Unbroken. But they want to leave you so that you have like as little resources, as little support. And they do that both physically with your material things, but I came home one weekend and he had gone through the house just throwing away items, just throwing stuff away that was needed. So they want to do that physically, but they also want to do that with your relationships and your support system. They'll begin the process.
Many will end up isolated, don't they? Because
you've already been isolated. Yeah. You've already been isolated. And so they want to go through your friend circle. They want to go through how people see you in the school system. They want to see, all the people that you deal with athletics and sports. They want to get with your family. And they want to try to break down any support that you have so that they are giving you what they believe is the ultimate punishment for saying no to them.
And did you have good support when you left him, even though he's trying to do all this stuff?
I have, and we talked about my parents. My parents, this is what I'll say about my parents. My parents they're survivors. When there is a crisis, they are there. One of my parents has been somewhere near this house or in this house since the day that I told them that I was sexually violated by my spouse. One or the other. And they have come to support me as I've gotten back on my feet, going back to work, as I've launched my business, taking care of everything with the boys, sharing in all of the stuff of, raising 4 kids by yourself, taking my son to college. All of those different things. So, one of the cool things about your healing journey is that, yes, you can go back and look at your childhood and you can take honest assessment of the things that were hurtful to you, but you can also take honest assessment about the things that you got from your family that are awesome, that you want to carry forward. And that showing up for your family and that loyalty to, because I've seen survivors where their parents turned against them with the abuser. I've seen, situations where literally that person has no one because of the impact or the influence of that abuser. So I'm thankful every day for my parents. Yeah.
And what kind of impact did it have on your boys? Do they see their father now at all?
Oh, yes. We have a court, we went through the divorce process. We have custody. He's, keeps the order. We keep everything according to what the court has laid out. So there's no gray area, which is an important thing for people to do when they are dealing with psychological abusers. But, that's still their dad.
Yes.
He's still their hero.
But it must be hard for you to trust him that he doesn't try and indoctrinate their minds in some way against you.
Well, since I watched him do it in my face, I already understand that that's what he's going to attempt to do anyway. Okay. And what God has impressed upon me is this, and this is what I hold on to when they have to go anywhere with my ex-spouse. I'm not there, but God is there.
Okay.
And he takes very good care of my kids. And if there's anything that I need to know, he will let me know when I need to know it. So I don't have to ask lots of questions and be digging into their, what they do. I'm not there to influence how they see their dad. I'm not there to influence how they see their family, because there's multiple sides of the family. I'm there to pour the love that I have for them into them. And I trust that that's going to be enough in the end. I really do.
And was your faith as strong when you were growing up, or when you're in the marriage, or has this faith, come in since you've left him? Because your faith really helps you, doesn't it?
It really does. It is, it's my anchor.
Yeah.
It's what has kept me unbroken. And holding on to who I really am, and holding on to my center. I started, having this draw to looking at the things of the Bible and, talking to God and praying when I was younger. I really did. It started when I was young, probably in my, 10, 12, somewhere around this, where I got baptized and all the rest of that stuff. And through the years, it has, been something that I have leaned on when I've been in trouble. No shade. I've leaned on it when I've gotten to the bottom of things. But through this marriage, and I remember, Shane, I went through a period where I was wanting to commit suicide. I remember having, and it was like a movie scene. I remember, if you've ever seen Forrest Gump,
yeah,
where Lieutenant Dan is at the top of the boat in the middle of this huge storm before all the boats, and he became the big shrimping boat person. I was like Lieutenant Dan, and I looked at God as I was walking my baby in the stroller one day. I said, God, I can't do this anymore. And if you don't do something, I am reading in the Bible. The Bible is telling me that you made an abundant life for me. And this is not an abundant life. This is everything but an abundant life. If you don't do something, I am out of here. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do another day of life like this. And so I was shaking my fist at God, right? I'm just like, God, you got to do something. And the next day I woke up and I went to walk him again, and something was different. Something was different. The color on the trees was greener. The wind, it was like something in my brain, like I could hear things a lot more, like clearly. It wasn't loud, it was clear. It was like I had walked into a Disney Pixar movie and everything was in 3D. And I had this thought, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, you answered me. And from that moment, God just started pulling me to sit in the Bible and to read and to read and to learn who he is for myself, and to learn who I am through that Bible. And so my faith has been a big part of what has kept me from losing my mind, frankly.
Yeah, I love the word you use, that it's your anchor, and it doesn't have to be God, but everybody could find an anchor to really keep them steady. Because it's like staying steady, isn't it? And staying grounded and connected in.
Yes. And it doesn't mean that you won't be tossed about. And it doesn't mean that storms are not going to happen. Healing doesn't mean that you are without any distresses or troubles or stresses.
It's no guarantee.
It's no guarantee. It doesn't even mean that you won't go through another situation where someone abuses you.
I think we have
because many survivors go back into situations because of the pattern. They go back into and are, connected with people who continue that same pattern of abuse. And so they get from one relationship to the next, to the next. I've taken a little hiatus over the last couple of years. I've dated a little bit here and there, but that process has been about me just getting comfortable with me. And getting to know myself.
Yeah, your relationship with yourself, really, isn't it? Because you've never had that. Somebody always told you how to think and feel and do and wear and be. So what kind of messages do you give your boys? Because it's interesting that life has given you 4 boys.
Right. It is, right? I said, Lord, you are so funny, because I could have had girls, right? And that would have been a different thing. But my heart for them is for, I say this all the time with especially my oldest son, who is about to graduate from college. If you leave here with your center, if you leave here knowing who you are and the way that you treat people leaves them better than you found them, I have done my job as a mom. And so a lot of what I'm doing is giving them time and attention. A lot of what I'm doing is getting to know their life and their inner worlds and what they like and what their passions are. The things that I am having to do now to discover who I am, I want to do that for them as they're growing up.
Oh,
and love does amazing things.
It does. I bet you are an awesome mom. I can just hear it.
I love them. I don't know. I mean, I never planned on being a mom of 4 boys. I couldn't imagine my life without them.
Absolutely. So just before we kind of say goodbye, because the time is whizzing past, anyone that's listening right now that thinks they're in an abusive relationship, they're starting to recognize the signs, what advice would you give to someone who's listening?
The advice that I would give to someone who's listening is that that part of your intuition and your gut that's telling you that something is wrong and you're in danger is right. Listen to it. One of the things you lose in psychological abuse is the ability to trust yourself. And so that getting reconnected with trusting that gut feeling is the first thing I would say. The next thing I would say is please build a support system. Get people, whether it's therapists, I have therapists, coaches, counselors, I have a spiritual director, I have pastors who pour into me. I have a team, a mental health team of people who have supported me in my recovery and continue to support me in my recovery. So whether it's professionals that you pay for, many of my clients and many of people that come to work with me in communities have been left in financial straits. So whether it's people who do it pro bono, voluntary, whether it's people who are part of communities like you have been talking about, or support communities, whatever that is, do the reaching out and be willing to ask for help so that you have people that can help anchor you through your process. Yeah.
I think that is great advice. So if people want to find out more about you, can you let us know where they can find you?
Absolutely. My website, my coaching website is thenarcissisticabusecoach.com. I work pretty exclusively with one-on-one coaching with people who are narcissistic and psychological abuse survivors, but also people who have codependency and childhood trauma. I just launched November 1st a community called the Kimberly Weeks Freedom Academy, because what 10 years of therapy taught me is unpacking psychological abuse takes time.
Yes.
And it takes
It's not a quick fix, really, isn't it? It's a process. It's not an overnight.
It isn't. I've had people say, oh, I went to therapy for 6 sessions. I've gone to 10 years of therapy. I'm still in trauma therapy. If you are dealing with the impact, and as we talked about at the beginning, generation and intergenerational trauma, it's going to take some time. And so I created this community called the Kimberly Weeks Freedom Academy so that people could heal in community. I teach and equip twice a week, and that website is kwfreedomacademy.com. I'm super excited about it, and we're growing. So I just love the opportunity to invite more people into that space.
Brilliant. I mean, it would be great to say that your academy wasn't needed, but sadly we know that's not the case. But it's really empowering people to wake up and take control of their own life. So Kimberly, I'm just so grateful that you've taken the time out all the way from across the pond to speak with me today. So thank you so much, and just continue to shine your beautiful light, because it is radiant. It really is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madeline. Thank you so much. It's been my absolute honor to have you, the time with you.
Thank you.
Unbroken, healing through storytelling.